thank you for joining us for another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I am your host for this wonderful little half hour where we're going to talk all things motorsports today. And we have a lot to get to, especially since we had a packed weekend of auto racing over the past week. And then we've got another packed weekend this weekend. So last weekend, Formula One and Supercars were down under in Australia. NASCAR was out in Las Vegas, and IndyCar was off. But IMSA was in action with the 12 hours of Sebring. We've got all of that. Now this weekend, Formula One moves to China, NASCAR comes all the way to Homestead, and IndyCar returns to action at the Thermal Club. So we'll cover all of that as well as the recent news in this week's episode. But first, before we do that, be sure to subscribe to WTHR on YouTube in order to get the latest Racing Report episodes as soon as they are uploaded. And also be sure to download the WTHR Plus app so that you can watch new and old Racing Report episodes whenever you want on demand, as well as streaming live on our 24/7 app. Also, be sure to follow me on social media. That's RPEETERS33 on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, whatever you use. I use it too, so you can find me there, and I'll make sure to let you guys know what some of my own personal opinions are regarding the racing world, as well as let you guys know when new episodes are posted. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the news segment of this week, because Formula One, like I said, got back-to-back weekends this weekend in China, and the big news, obviously, from that is that all 11 Formula One teams, including Cadillac, have signed the newest Concord Agreement that is set to go in effect next year. Now, the Concord Agreement, for those who may not know, it outlines the commercial terms that teams will operate under for a specific period between those teams, those Formula One teams, as well as F1's owner or media owner, Liberty Media. So that is the big thing there. We've got everything is now in motion for Cadillac to officially become an American Formula One team next season. So we'll have Haas and Cadillac F1 out there on the Formula One grid representing the stars and stripes. So looking forward to that. Meanwhile, in Formula One, F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali visited Bangkok as plans for a race in Thailand continue to gain steam. The track would likely be a city circuit that features public roads and park space, very similar to what we saw at Albert Park and what Albert Park has kind of turned itself into. But it would also likely take place of an existing Grand Prix, because as we are aware, the Belgian Grand Prix is going to start rotating here in a couple of years. Formula One's definitely trying to get that more rotational Grand Prix style going, and Thailand could be perfect for that. Now, what's interesting is this was a Racer article that was posted. It was also posted on motorsport.com. Several other outlets reported it, but it definitely seems like some of the other Formula One Grand Prix that were being considered, like in Rwanda, like in South Africa, are kind of in the back burner right now, and it seems like this Thailand Grand Prix, the Thai Grand Prix, is more likely going to happen than some of those other races in the future. But again, we'll have to keep tabs on that and see where that goes here in the future. Maybe we could see a Thai Grand Prix be announced here in the next couple of months. Who knows? We'll find out. All right, now let's move on into the world of IndyCar, because IndyCar is back this weekend at the Thermal Club. Yes, I know it's the Thermal Club, but hey, at least IndyCar is back. But let's talk about some of the news that's going on in that world, because the big news, of course, is Indy 500 related. We've got news that Able Motorsports will not attempt the Indianapolis 500 this year, as the team instead plans to support Jacob Abel's efforts with Dale Coyne Racing. Now, this could also be because Chevrolet, this is according to Racer, Chevrolet does not have enough engines left. They're out of engines to distribute for this year's Indianapolis 500, and only Honda has one remaining engine lease that is available. And again, that is expected to go to Catherine Legg if she could put a deal together with some unknown team right now. She's still apparently looking to get that deal together, and Honda has that engine available to probably first come, first serve, but it's highly speculated that engine will go to Catherine Legg, likely. But again, she has not formally announced any plans. She has not formally announced any, sponsorships or anything like that related to the Indy 500. So again, keep that with a grain of salt, but just know that we're still sitting at 34 entries right now, not including Able Motorsports. So we'll see. We'll see. Meanwhile, let's talk about some Rahal Letterman Lanigan news, because boy, the Indy 500 seems to be their Achilles heel the last couple of years. But definitely some news to keep a lookout for today, because Toby Sowery, if you are familiar with him, he's an Indy NXT driver, also races in sports cars. He's going to serve as the reserve and development driver for RLL Racing. No Indy 500 seat, obviously, because they've got 4 entries already with the addition of Takuma Sato, which we talked about last week. So some news there. More IndyCar teams definitely really buying into having a reserve and development driver role or a test and reserve driver role. Because, again, remember all the things that happened last year with drivers getting injured, the McLaren's revolving door saga. Yeah, all of that probably wanting to be avoided by most IndyCar teams. So they're more willing to probably put a reserve driver and a test driver on their rosters. Also in the world of Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, if you are a Dogecoin investor, then my best of luck to you. But apparently Devlin DeFrancesco is, and he's teamed up with Dogecoin to give fans a chance to pick which livery he will race in this year's Indianapolis 500. You've got about 3 different liveries that fans can pick from, and he's going to be sponsored by Dogecoin. And apparently, this is what's interesting here, DeFrancesco is said he's going to donate about $25,000 worth of Dogecoin to Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis. In addition, it was also noted in that same press release that DeFrancesco is taking $100,000 worth of his salary in Dogecoin. Now, this is not unprecedented. Athletes have taken salaries in cryptocurrency before, but I believe that was primarily Bitcoin, which holds quite a substantial higher value than maybe Dogecoin does. So some interesting development there, but definitely if you want to get in on maybe having a say in what type of livery runs in this Indianapolis 500 this year, you will have the ability to do that. You could go ahead and vote right now on whatever DeFrancesco's social media pages will likely link you to. All right, let's talk about some IMSA news, because we did have the 12 hours of Sebring over the past weekend. Penske Porsche again dominating that, but this is some different news here. Robert Wickens, that's right, the Robert Wickens he tested a Chevrolet Camaro for DXDT Racing at Sebring in preparation for his debut with the team next month in Long Beach. Now, it was previously reported that he will be running the sprint races on IMSA's calendar. So those sprint races are those 2-hour and 40-minute kind of races that, aren't super long, but are long enough to qualify as an IMSA race. So he's going to be racing those with hand controls coming up next month at Long Beach. That's where he's going to make his debut for that team. And now, if you're unfamiliar with what Robbie has been up to lately, he did win 3 races last year in the IMSA's Michelin Pilot Challenge, driving for Brian Herta Autosport, which, by the way, just announced that they are relocating from Speedway, Indiana to Brownsburg, Indiana. So some interesting news on that front regarding where teams are going to be located in the future. All right, let's talk about some NASCAR news now, because there's a lot of it. And as we have promised each and every time on the Racing Report that we discuss the NASCAR lawsuit that's going on, we are again going to discuss it this week today, because recently Front Row Motorsports and 2311 filed their response to NASCAR's appeal of the December injunction ruling that requires NASCAR to allow those 2 teams to race as chartered organizations in 2025. Now, the teams are arguing that they deserve to have this injunction be granted because they will likely, quote unquote, win the case, and that the Cup Series does require elite teams, and that 2025 charter agreement does not provide them the economic model to be elite. So to kind of explain all of this, we're really looking more at NASCAR saying, the team saying, hey, whatever NASCAR is saying here, not right. They are wrong. That is not correct. This is our response to that. We are correcting some of the things that they said in their response. Now, again, this trial is still set for December 1st, so we could likely have a decision before the 2026 season. Again, the legal process moves quite slow, much slower than we're used to in the racing world, but either way, this is kind of the way things are going. Things are kind of cooling off. It's now more lawyers going back and forth with each other, statements coming out of different law firms, supporting one side or the other. And this is probably kind of going to be the news you're going to get regarding this as time moves forward, as we get closer and closer to that December 1st trial date. So again, keep it here with the Racing Report, because every time we get a new update on the NASCAR lawsuit, we are going to bring it to you here. Now, for some sponsorship news that might be some pretty good news for Denny Hamlin fans, Progressive Insurance and Joe Gibbs Racing have announced that they will sponsor Denny Hamlin's number 11 Toyota Camry in 18 races this Cup Series season, beginning this weekend at Homestead. So what we're seeing now, Denny Hamlin started the season with only a handful of sponsors. Now he's got more. He's got a big anchor sponsor that's come on board in Progressive. Now, NASCAR has mentioned that they've been trying to find an insurance company as a replacement for Geico, because remember, Geico stopped being a premier sponsor of NASCAR last season. No, we no longer have the Geico Restart Zone. You don't see the Geico logo up by the NASCAR premier sponsors like Coca-Cola, like Xfinity, like Busch Light, things like that. So NASCAR is apparently was looking at Progressive, but now Progressive has decided, you know what? We'd rather be on a car. And so that's what they've done. So now we will see how that goes. But good for Denny Hamlin finally locking down a very important sponsorship after losing FedEx in the offseason. That was possibly going to be a big blow to Joe Gibbs Racing and Denny Hamlin. But now we've got Progressive coming on board, so hopefully that will sort things out. Meanwhile, some big news to talk about in the NASCAR world is that media in Quebec, so this is all in French, because remember, people in Quebec speak French in Canada. They're reporting that NASCAR is expected to return to Montreal in 2026, beginning with the Xfinity and Truck Series and possibly adding the Cup Series as early as 2027. Now, that would be the first time that NASCAR has raced at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal since 2012, when the NASCAR Nationwide Series, now Xfinity Series, ran there last. I think a lot of Canadian fans have been waiting for this. A lot of, just in general, NASCAR fans have been waiting for this, because Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is such a historic track. It hosts Formula One. It's hosted Champ Car events in the past, and it has a relatively historic past with NASCAR. And then specifically the Xfinity Series, what is now the Xfinity Series. So I am curious to see where NASCAR goes with that, if that ends up being announced. And I'm curious to see what race maybe gets dropped for this race, if any. I don't know if maybe they'll drop a race in the Truck or Xfinity Series next year, but by 2027, I will be curious to see what race is replaced by this new Montreal event. So interesting news there. Again, it's not formally confirmed yet, but I imagine hopefully NASCAR and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve are in the process of putting out some sort of statement to confirm this as soon as all of the buttons are tied up and all of the contracts are signed. So, all right. Final piece of NASCAR news here before we take a break and talk about what's coming up in the weekend. Casey Mears is going to reappear in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's going to drive for Garage 66 beginning at Martinsville in the number 66 Ford Mustang with sponsorship from Hitchco. Now, remember, Garage 66 is just Carl Long's Motorsport Business Management, rebranded on their Cup site. They still run the Xfinity Series under the MBM Motorsport Business Manager. They run under that team name, but in the Cup Series, they're called Garage 66. But Casey Mears making his first Cup start since the Daytona 500 all the way back in 2019. And last time Casey Mears ran full-time in Cup was in 2016 with Germain Racing, ironically, with sponsorship from Geico. But that's the NASCAR news that is happening this week. So with that said, let's go ahead and take our first break of the show. And when we come back, we are going to preview this weekend's races, as well as take a look back at some of the biggest storylines from this past weekend. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and now we're going to take a look at some of the races that are coming up this weekend. We're going to start off with Formula One. Man, oh man, if you watched that Australian Grand Prix, boy, you were in for a treat. I loved watching every second of it. It kept me on the edge of my seat from lap one to the very finish. I never knew what was going to happen. And we even got a little bit of a delayed start there with the rain and Isaac Hadjar spinning right coming off the grid. A rookie spinning right off the grid, of course. Now, he was quite emotional after that, and Lewis Hamilton's father, Anthony, was there to console him. But, of course, Helmut Marko, he thinks that was not right. He thinks that was embarrassing. Now, Hadjar has maybe said, yeah, it was a little bit embarrassing. That's what Hadjar said. But most of the F1 media and most of the people in the F1 paddock are indeed criticizing Helmut Marko's comments regarding Isaac Hadjar. Now, if you want my opinion, again, you can listen to my podcast, Racing with Rob and Roller, anytime you want. It's available on all of the major podcast platforms. You can listen to that if you want and hear really my take on that. But for now, let's keep in mind that there are indeed 6 rookies on the grid and 4 of them failed to finish in Australia. So that kind of makes me wonder, going into Bahrain, we've got a sprint race weekend. What does this sprint race weekend kind of have in store? Is this going to be kind of, that practice race that some of these rookies are going to take advantage of, and maybe hopefully if they make their mistake in the sprint race, hopefully it will prevent them from making a mistake later on in the actual race. Maybe. But again, it's our first sprint race of the season. And now remember, Formula One really likes to have these sprint races. But I think for the sake of the rookies in the field, I think it'll be very, very beneficial for them, because when you're talking about a race like in Formula One, and you have all of these young, inexperienced guys who have really very seldom taken part in some of these bigger Formula One cars. They've had a lot of experience in some of the smaller Formula 2, Formula 3 cars, maybe have a little bit of sports car experience, but really, I think getting that extra track time in the sprint race, in race conditions, is going to be very beneficial, and hopefully you won't see such high attrition of the rookies at China. Now, again, this all depends on what the radar says, because last weekend at Australia, it was a green and sunny couple of Friday and Saturday, but then when we got to Sunday, the rains came. And of course, we know that it canceled the Formula 2 feature race, and it canceled the final supercars race of the weekend. That was not ideal for some of the fans that waited and were hoping to see good races, but instead saw a bunch of laps run under safety car before the races inevitably got canceled. A very disappointing moment, but F2, F3 not in China this weekend. The only other support series is the F1 Academy, so you can watch the F1 Academy this weekend if you're looking for some support racing to watch. But really what we got to talk about here is in Formula One, the McLarens look dominant. And I think the McLarens are going to be very, very hard to beat this season, specifically because if you look at what Max Verstappen was doing in that Red Bull compared to Liam Lawson, I know it's a big gap. Max Verstappen is a 4-time world champion. Liam Lawson is just a rookie. But I really think that Ferrari car is not as strong. It might even be less strong than last year's Ferrari car, and that wasn't even that good of a car. So it looked like Liam Lawson was struggling to adapt. That car looked like a pig, even with Verstappen driving it. So my big question is, I think that the McLaren can probably, I know it's early, it's only one race, but if you're McLaren, if you're Zach Brown, if you're Lando Norris, if you're Oscar Piastri, you're probably sitting here right now thinking, we probably could win a world title, sweep the drivers and the teams championships this year if we really put our minds to it. And I think that it's going to be a tight race, but I really feel like that Red Bull is just lacking something. It is definitely lacking something compared to what I would expect. Now, Ferrari's the other caveat, because Leclerc and Hamilton both showed pretty good speed. But of course, Ferrari being Ferrari, they botched their own pit strategy, pitted when they didn't need to maybe, and ended up sending their drivers out of a podium position, still in the points, but again, probably had podiums locked up, a double podium locked up, went away. Ferrari's going to have to learn how to not beat themselves because, again, they do have Lewis Hamilton. Lewis freaking Hamilton, guys. They have to capitalize on this opportunity. And it seems like, from what I was watching, Ferrari was really micromanaging the 7-time world champion in Lewis Hamilton, and I don't think Hamilton's going to like that too much. So if I'm Ferrari, I'm saying, all right, Lewis, we're going to let you do this. We learned our lesson last week. We're going to probably maybe Charles Leclerc, he likes this. We clearly see you don't. We're not going to micromanage you as much. Because literally, they were asking him to turn on the ERS, telling him when to use DRS, telling him, all this stuff. It's like, man, just let the dude drive. He's been doing this for longer than probably most of you have been employed. Let the man drive, I hopefully if that happens, maybe, just maybe, Hamilton might be able to stand on the top step of the podium in Formula One this year. But all of that, looking forward to. Again, we've got a sprint race, and again, it's late at night, so if you're a night owl like me, you're probably really excited to have this Formula One race in China, but if you are on a normal schedule like most of the world, yeah, you're probably going to have to catch the highlights or get up real early in the night. So, all right, let's talk about IndyCar in the Thermal Club because there's a lot to talk about, surprisingly, even though this race is kind of boring. And at least it has been boring. We've only ran there one time last year, and it was a made-for-TV event, $1 million challenge. It was not a race that I'm going to go back and watch again. I'll just be honest about that. Now, that's not to say that I don't think that the Thermal Club circuit itself is cool. I think it is, but it's not exactly a race meant for race. It is a test track. It is, for all intents and purposes, it is a test track. It is not meant, or was not built with passing zones in mind. And I think that's why. But here are some of the biggest storylines, I guess, heading into the race weekend is that, first of all, turns 15 and 16 have been reprofiled. So remember last year, you were coming off some of the final turns. You saw these cars get a little bit airborne coming over that hill. That's kind of been smoothed out a little bit to kind of maybe fix some of that issues. Also, that asphalt's been laid down. Now, again, because of that, again, remember the tire wear from last year had real bad tire degradation. Well, now Firestone's kind of come in. They've tweaked the tire compounds just a little bit. Teams will have 6 primaries and 4 alternate tires to run at Thermal Club this weekend. Will that help the racing? I don't know. Again, it's not going to be, an exhibition race. It's going to be an actual points-paying event that will go from start to finish. It will be longer than last year for sure. And that raises the question, can Palou repeat? Can Alex Palou repeat what he did a year ago and win at the Thermal Club, which would then have him be going 2 for 2 in the IndyCar Series for 2025? I think that it's a very strong possibility. Look, man, Palou clearly had an upper edge at this track last year, but again, track position matters more than anything. So really, you're going to be wanting to watch qualifying this weekend to really get an idea of who stacks up where, because that track position is going to be so important for these drivers. Whoever's qualifying on the pole, second, third, fourth, you want to be in that fast 6 to really have an opportunity to win this race. It's going to be a hard one to pass, and we don't know how much tire wear is going to be. So maybe the red tires wear faster than the primaries, and that might make for some better, more comers and goers, better closer racing, different pit strategies. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to track position is where you have to see really who's going to win this race. So Thermal Club this weekend, get ready for it. If you need to maybe take a nap after staying up late for the F1 race, I don't think anybody would blame you, but still watch IndyCar because it's IndyCar and it's always thrilling, fun, and exciting. All right, let's talk now about NASCAR. We got the NASCAR weekend coming in at Homestead. Christopher Bell's attempt to win 4 straight races in a row was dashed by none other than Josh Berry last weekend. Now, that springboards Josh Berry into the playoffs, which, first of all, is huge compared to where Wood Brothers Racing was last year with Harrison Burton. Now, yes, they did get into the playoffs by virtue of a win at Daytona, but this is a win. This is their first win since Ryan Blaney at Pocono in 2017 on a non-super speedway track. And it's just one of the few, I believe, Blaney's win, like I just mentioned at Pocono, Elliott Sadler's win at Bristol in 2001, and as well as Barry's win. I think those are the last 3 Wood Brothers races won by the Wood Brothers that were not on a super speedway track. Remember, Trevor Bayne won in 2011 the Daytona 500, and then, of course, Harrison Burton last year in the fall race for Daytona. I am very much curious to see what happens this weekend at Homestead, because Homestead is going to be very similar. It's not a one-to-one comparison from Las Vegas to Homestead. Obviously, one is a tri-oval, one is a true oval. One is banked just a little bit higher than the other. But that all being said, I think what we're looking at here might be a great opportunity for Christopher Bell to rebound and get that 4th win on the season. Look, last week he had some pit road problems. You have comedy of pit road errors, basically, is what I titled our most recent podcast. And that's really what it was. You had a lot of pit stop errors. And, of course, the controversy that came around Christopher Bell having a loose wheel stopping in his teammate Chase Briscoe's pit box. NASCAR then said, all right, well, Joe Gibbs Racing, Chase Briscoe's crew said, all right, we'll just tighten that wheel and send you off on their way. NASCAR didn't penalize him, but now it is. They've changed the rules now to say that will be a penalty. I have some feelings about that. Again, not to plug the podcast again, but that's where you can go if you want to hear those thoughts. Now, I really do think, though, that Christopher Bell is still the guy to watch. Now, the favorites, according to the latest betting odds, of course, have Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick and Ryan Blaney up there as the 3 favorites. But Christopher Bell is still the 4th highest favorite driver. And I think that based upon how he's been going the last couple of weeks, he's done really, really well here at Homestead in the past. It's not like it would be foreign to him to win here. It's entirely possible. But, of course, you can't count out Tyler Reddick, who, what did he do last year at this racetrack? Walk-off win, got himself into the championship 4. That's the kind of thing that you might be looking for. Now, it's not a playoff race anymore. We're going to just make it into the playoffs, not advance in the playoffs at Homestead this year. So maybe you could see guys maybe mixing it up. Maybe you could see someone like a Josh Berry go back up to the front. Maybe this is the race that Ty Gibbs finally turns around his miserable season. I don't know. We'll have to see. There are 37 entries in the race this weekend. J.J. Yaley will be racing for NY Racing in the number 44 Chevrolet. So 37 cars trying to make, obviously, 40 spots. Won't have any DNQs, misses in the show. But still, qualifying might be one to watch because I'm really curious to see where does some of these other teams stack up to Joe Gibbs Racing and how is Penske going to rebound. Obviously, we know with Roger Penske's team, they're always very good, but Ryan Blaney has had a disastrous start to the season. Joey Logano has been nowhere this season. The defending champion, Joey Logano, has been absolutely nowhere this season in races, in the points, and even Austin Cindric is struggling as well, but we've got the Penske satellite car and the Wood brothers, Josh Berry. He's in the playoffs, and he's going to win. So maybe, just maybe, those Penske cars can rebound. I don't know who's going to do it. Maybe it'll be Logano. Maybe it'll be Blaney. I don't know. Maybe Hamlin takes Progressive to victory lane for the first time after they just recently saw, like, first race with Progressive. Maybe he takes him to the victory lane that first day. I don't know. Be curious to see. Again, so many things to look forward to. The truck race coming up on Friday, the Xfinity Series race coming up on Saturday. So it's a whole big weekend in Homestead, Miami for the NASCAR Cup Series. And now there might be some announcements coming this weekend. Who knows? Now, my co-host of my podcast has floated the idea that maybe they have moved this Homestead race to this date so they can refresh and revitalize and maybe renovate the track just a little bit in the hopes and preparation for the hosting the 2026 NASCAR Championship race. Again, keep that with a grain of salt, but it is interesting to see where that goes. All right, that is all the time we have today for this week's episode of the Racing Report. We really appreciate everybody tuning in this week. We appreciate your support. Be sure to subscribe to WTHR on YouTube to get the latest Racing Report episodes as soon as they are uploaded. Also, be sure to download the WTHR Plus app for your smart TV so that you can watch every single Racing Report episode on demand at your own convenience. And also, as always, be sure to follow me on social media at rpeters33 if you want to get up-to-date opinions from me or just know when my latest projects come out. Either way, it's kind of vanity. But hey, I appreciate the support, and I enjoy hearing from the viewers and listeners whenever I get the opportunity to. So that is it for this week's episode of The Racing Report. Enjoy the races this weekend, and we will see you next week with another episode right here on WTHR+.